manager ever.
What's his name, please?
Alexander Ferguson.
The champions of England.
So you think he makes you sick? Well, buckle up, because Sir Alex Ferguson, the most successful British manager in football history, built his Manchester United empire on something far darker than tactics and training. With 38 major honours and 13 Premier League titles spanning over 2 decades, Ferguson created an era of total dominance that transformed United from a sleeping giant into a global powerhouse. He won trophies at every level, dominated rivals, and built multiple championship-winning teams. But here's the uncomfortable truth. This dynasty was forged in a crucible of absolute control through calculated acts of power. Behind the silverware and celebrations lay a pattern of brutal power plays that destroyed careers and relationships. To keep his throne, Ferguson had to destroy the very players who helped him build it. These weren't unfortunate casualties of ambition. They were necessary sacrifices in Ferguson's relentless pursuit of control. Today, we're diving deep into the 5 players Ferguson grew to hate and the brutal ways he cut them down. Each story reveals a different challenge to his authority and how he responded with ruthless precision. Ferguson didn't just manage players, he ruled them with an iron fist wrapped in a velvet glove. His law was carved in stone. No player was ever bigger than him. Coming from the Govan shipyards, where he witnessed the brutal realities of industrial labour and union politics, Ferguson understood power and authority in its rawest form. He saw how hierarchies worked, how control was maintained, and how challenges to authority were crushed. He transplanted that working-class iron will into the Old Trafford dressing room, creating an environment where his word was absolute law. Loyalty was demanded, but it only flowed one way: upward to the boss. This wasn't a democracy. This wasn't even a benevolent dictatorship. This was pure autocracy. When players challenged that authority, whether through ego, ambition, or simply growing too big for their boots, Ferguson's response was swift and merciless. He would identify the threat, isolate it, and eliminate it before it could spread to others. Before we get into these shocking stories, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling us who you think was treated the worst. Your support keeps this channel going, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next in this story. The first victim was Paul Ince, and his story became the blueprint for Ferguson's ruthlessness. Ince was the engine of Ferguson's first Premier League winning team, helping United win their first league title in 26 years. He was fearless in midfield, driving the team forward with aggressive runs and tenacious defending. The fans loved him for his passion and commitment. But Ince made one fatal mistake. He started calling himself the Governor. To Ferguson, this was a declaration of war. It was an unacceptable challenge to the hierarchy. Ferguson's message was clear. There's only one governor around here, and it isn't you. This wasn't about banter or team spirit. This was about who held ultimate power at Manchester United. The cracks went deeper. Ferguson wanted a disciplined holding midfielder who would sit deep and protect the back four. Instead, Ince was spending more time going forward, but not tracking back quickly enough. He believed he was good enough to play a more expansive, creative role. Ferguson saw this as tactical disobedience, a player putting his own ambitions above the team's needs. The breaking point came during a match against Norwich City. United were winning 3-1 in the 93rd minute when Ince went on a mazy dribble through midfield and lost the ball. In the dressing room, Ferguson went absolutely ballistic. He screamed at Ince, "Who do you think you are? You aren't Maradona or Pelé." This wasn't about one mistake. This was about a player who thought he knew better than the manager. The end came brutally. After United lost the title and FA Cup final, Ferguson decided to act. Ince was playing golf when Ferguson called, demanding to see him immediately. When Ince arrived, Ferguson was waiting in his car. The conversation was ice cold. Inter Milan had made an offer, and United were accepting it. Just like that, Ince was gone, shocked and heartbroken. He hadn't seen it coming. Fans were furious. They couldn't believe the club was selling one of their best players. Ferguson's solution? Promote the unproven Nicky Butt from the youth team. It was a gamble that could have backfired spectacularly. But it paid off. United won the double the next season with Butt and Paul Scholes in midfield, launching the class of '92. Ferguson had been vindicated, but he wasn't finished with Ince. Years later, in a documentary, Ferguson was caught on camera before playing Liverpool, where Ince now played. He called Ince a big-time Charlie in front of his squad. That phrase haunted Ince for years. The message had been sent to every player: challenge me, and I'll destroy you publicly. If Ince was the blueprint, then Jaap Stam was Ferguson's greatest miscalculation. Stam was a colossus, the bedrock of the 1999 treble-winning team. He was signed for a record fee for a defender and quickly became arguably the best centre-back in the world. His physical presence was intimidating, his reading of the game was exceptional, and his partnership with other defenders was rock solid. In his 3 seasons at United, they won the Premier League every year. Losing him was an act of pure anger that Ferguson would later deeply regret. The flashpoint came in August 2001, when Stam's autobiography was published. It contained bombshells that sent Ferguson into a rage. Stam claimed Ferguson illegally tapped him up, approaching him without PSV's permission. This was a serious accusation that could damage Ferguson's professional reputation and integrity. Stam also alleged that Ferguson encouraged players to dive in European matches to win penalties, contradicting the club's public image. There was petty dressing room gossip too. Ferguson initially brushed it off, telling Stam not to worry about tabloid headlines. But as the media storm grew bigger and bigger, Ferguson's mood darkened. He became enraged, and the trust between them was shattered completely. What happened next was bizarre. After playing the opening game, Stam was dropped. Days later, while driving home, his agent called saying he'd been sold. Then Ferguson called, told him to pull over, and met him at a petrol station. Ferguson got in Stam's car and told him Lazio had offered £15 million, and his United career was over. Within 24 hours, Stam was in Rome. It was one of the most unceremonious exits in football history. The aftermath exposed the error in brutal fashion. United finished third, their lowest Premier League finish, and won no trophies for the first time in years. The defence that had been so solid fell apart completely. Meanwhile, Stam thrived for 5 more years at the highest level. Gary Neville called it a travesty. This case is unique because Ferguson admitted his mistake. Years later, he publicly conceded it was one of his biggest errors. That rare admission shows just how badly he got this one wrong. Then came David Beckham, and this was a cultural collision between 2 different worlds. Beckham was Ferguson's golden boy from the class of '92, a player he'd nurtured from a teenager. But everything changed when he married Victoria Adams, Posh Spice, in 1999. Suddenly, Beckham wasn't just a footballer, he was a global icon, a celebrity brand, a cultural phenomenon. Ferguson watched with growing despair as his protégé was swallowed by media attention and fame. The haircuts, the photo shoots, the endorsement deals. Ferguson believed Beckham surrendered his talent for celebrity lifestyle. He felt Beckham had made a choice between being the best player he could be and being the most famous player in the world. This manifested in revealing incidents that showed the growing divide. Ferguson was furious when Beckham missed training for his sick son, questioning his priorities. He confronted him at 6 a.m. after an unsanctioned trip to Ireland to see Victoria. He was incensed when Beckham refused to remove a beanie hat at dinner, just to hide his new hairstyle from the press. To Ferguson, these weren't the actions of a dedicated professional, but of a man whose priorities had shifted to brand Beckham rather than Manchester United. The tension exploded on February 15, 2003, after a 2-0 FA Cup defeat to Arsenal. Ferguson was furious about Beckham's tracking back. He was screaming at Beckham when Beckham swore back at him. Ferguson kicked a boot that flew across the room and hit Beckham above the eye. Beckham admitted he went at Ferguson and had to be held back by teammates. It was a shocking moment of violence that revealed how far their relationship had deteriorated. But what sealed Beckham's fate was what happened next. The story was leaked to the press the very next day. Beckham was photographed with a plaster and an Alice band deliberately highlighting the cut. For Ferguson, this was a calculated PR move designed to undermine him and paint Ferguson as the villain. It was evidence that Beckham thought he was bigger than the manager. Ferguson resolved to sell him immediately. The transfer had one twist. Ferguson agreed to sell Beckham to Barcelona, but Beckham refused to go. He said if he was being sold, he only wanted Real Madrid. United had to backpedal and negotiate with Madrid instead. Beckham got to choose his own destination. From a football perspective, Ferguson was vindicated once again. Beckham's sale funded Cristiano Ronaldo, who became the best player in the world at United. In the years since, the acrimony has faded, though Ferguson never wavered from his belief that Beckham's fame pursuit compromised his football legacy. But no player embodied Ferguson's spirit more than Roy Keane. For 12.5 years, Keane was Ferguson's warrior leader. Their breakdown in November 2005 was the most seismic and bitter fallout. The cracks had been forming. Keane warned Ferguson against a legal battle over a racehorse. Ferguson ignored him. Then Keane clashed with assistant Carlos Queiroz. When Queiroz questioned his loyalty, Keane exploded. "You left for Real Madrid." When Ferguson intervened, Keane turned on him too. The point of no return came after United were humiliated 4-1 by Middlesbrough. Keane recorded a segment for MUTV delivering brutal criticism. He ripped into Rio Ferdinand. It is poor defending. He destroyed several teammates. The players have let down the club, the manager, and the fans. Ferguson ordered the tape destroyed and fined Keane. Ferguson convened a team meeting and played the banned tape for the entire squad. Gary Neville described the atmosphere as horrific. Days later, Keane was summoned to meet Ferguson and David Gill. They presented a pre-prepared statement announcing his departure. Keane simply said, "Yeah, I'm off." Despite his reputation, Keane later admitted he broke down, weeping in his car. The fallout has been permanent. The Cold War has continued for nearly 2 decades. Keane will not forgive Ferguson. This feud remains irreparable because Keane's crime was different. It was a public betrayal of the collective. Finally, we come to Ruud van Nistelrooy. In 5 seasons, he scored 150 goals in 219 appearances. His departure in 2006 was about professional pride, clashing with tactical evolution. The team was moving toward a fluid attack led by Rooney and Ronaldo. Van Nistelrooy grew frustrated with Ronaldo's style and told him he should join the circus. The argument got heated, and Ronaldo was reduced to tears. The breaking point came at the 2006 Carling Cup final. Ferguson benched a fully fit Van Nistelrooy. When it became clear he wasn't being brought on, he directed a furious outburst at Ferguson. The end came ahead of the final league match. Ferguson told him, "You're not in the squad today." Van Nistelrooy was sent to collect his car. He was sold to Real Madrid that summer. The departure proved mutually beneficial. Van Nistelrooy won the top scorer award at Madrid. United flourished, winning 3 consecutive Premier League titles and the 2008 Champions League. Crucially, Van Nistelrooy later called Ferguson to apologise. Ferguson accepted it directly, and they've remained in contact since. These 5 brutal fallouts weren't accidents or personality clashes gone wrong. They were the essential mechanism by which Ferguson maintained his dynasty year after year. He cultivated leaders with immense drive and self-belief. Yet, when those qualities challenged his supremacy, the relationship was doomed. He needed strong characters to win titles, but he couldn't tolerate anyone who might rival his authority. It was a paradox that ensured these conflicts were inevitable. The conflict served dual purposes in Ferguson's grand strategy: public executions that reinforced control over the remaining players and strategic catalysts for squad regeneration. Ince's exit enabled the class of '92 to flourish. Beckham's sale funded Ronaldo's arrival. Van Nistelrooy's departure unleashed the fluid attack that won the Champions League. Each time, Ferguson weaponised the conflict to justify rebuilding the team on his terms. But there was a cost that can't be ignored. These weren't just tactical decisions made on a spreadsheet. They left broken relationships and accusations of disloyalty that haunt these players to this day. Keane won't forgive him even now. Ince was humiliated publicly. Stam was discarded at a petrol station like unwanted cargo. Beckham felt betrayed after years of loyalty. The emotional toll on players who gave everything for the club was immense, and lasting. Yet Ferguson never wavered from his conviction. In his world, control wasn't just part of the job, it was the entire job. No player was ever bigger than the manager or the club. That principle was sacred and absolute. The final verdict is clear and uncomfortable. Ferguson's brutal, high-profile divorces weren't evidence of a flawed management style. They were a core component of its success. These conflicts were public demonstrations of power. They were calculated moves that kept the empire in line through fear and respect. Yes, the cost was measured in broken relationships and emotional trauma, but the reward was unprecedented dominance. 38 major honours, 13 Premier League titles, and 26 years of absolute control. Ferguson proved that in the ruthless world of elite football, sometimes you have to break a few hearts to build a dynasty. So there you have it. 5 players, 5 brutal endings. One ruthless manager who understood that to maintain a dynasty, sometimes you have to destroy parts of your own creation. Who do you think was treated the worst? Was Ferguson a genius or a tyrant? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching.